She said it was just a friendly trip with her ex. But when I found the email he sent, and what his wife told me, I realized my entire marriage was a lie. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. I've got something personal to share today, something that's been weighing on me for a while. My name's Jake Thompson. I'm 33, pretty regular guy by most standards. I co-own a thriving plumbing business with 3 other guys I trust like brothers. At the time this all started, I was married to Emily. She's 32, beautiful in that head-turning kind of way, and yeah, some folks called her a trophy wife. She worked as a secretary for the guy who owned the local BMW dealership. Together, we were raising our 8-year-old daughter Lily. We had what looked like a picture-perfect life. Nice house in a quiet, upscale part of town, and a cozy summer home out on a well-known island in the Baltic Sea. Everything seemed to be falling into place. I first met Emily while I was handling the heating installation at her parents' place during a big town renovation project. She was still living at home back then, clearly upset over a recent breakup. She had just ended things with her ex-fiancé. Everyone in town called him Blaze. That guy was a walking disaster. The last straw? He'd been caught red-handed by a furious husband after sneaking around with the man's wife. That husband? He shot Blaze straight in the rear with rock salt from a shotgun. Blaze had always been a woman chaser, but that time he'd pushed things way too far. His real name was Ryan Brooks. His mother, a former au pair in California, had come back home 4 months pregnant. She named her son Ryan, believing it was the name of the charming American man she had fallen for, though chances are that wasn't even his real name. Eventually, she reconnected with Elias Brooks, a quiet guy she knew from school but had never paid much attention to. Elias had always been the shy, overlooked type, and despite everything he jumped at the chance to step up. They got married and he legally adopted Ryan, raising him like his own. To everyone's surprise, that little family thrived. They had 2 daughters, and Elias managed to grow his modest computer shop into a booming chain of a dozen large stores. After selling it off to a big international company, they used the money to buy an impressive countryside estate and took up horse breeding. Elias doted on Ryan, giving him everything he never had growing up. The result? Ryan grew into an arrogant, self-centered guy, handsome, rich, and used to getting his way, especially with women. And that's when he met Emily. Ryan had genuinely fallen for her, at least as much as a guy like him could. But Emily had made it clear, she was saving herself for marriage. That didn't sit well with someone like Ryan, who was used to getting what he wanted without delay. Still, he stuck around, pretending to respect her boundaries. But it was only a matter of time before his true colors came out. When Emily caught him cheating, she ended the engagement. The betrayal hit her hard, sending her into a deep emotional slump. I hated seeing her like that. Hoping to lift her spirits, I asked her out for dinner. To my surprise and quiet joy, she said yes. That evening turned out better than I could have imagined. We talked, laughed, and somewhere in the quiet of my apartment, she opened up to me. She told me she was done with the good girl act. Tired of always playing it safe while her friends lived freely, she wanted to experience some of that same freedom, maybe even to get back at Ryan in her own way. That night we ended up sleeping together. But after that, no matter how much I tried, she wouldn't agree to another date. Soon rumors began to swirl. Word around town was that Emily had jumped headfirst into a wild phase, parties, brief flings, even ironically with a couple of Ryan's old buddies. Ryan meanwhile left for college and kept chasing skirts like nothing had changed. But there was one thing he couldn't shake. He couldn't get over the fact that Emily, the only woman who had ever turned him down while they were engaged, had later been with his friends. His ego never quite recovered from that. About a year after that one night, I ran into Emily again at a mutual friend's party. We got to talking and she told me her reckless chapter was behind her. As we reconnected, things just felt different. We started seeing each other regularly and over time it became serious. 3 years later we got married. Not long after the wedding, Emily became pregnant with our daughter Lily. One afternoon I was doing some plumbing work for one of Ryan's old friends. The guy smirked at me and said something that stuck in my mind ever since. He told me Ryan had once made a promise. He'd sleep with Emily one day and when he did, he'd make sure everyone knew about it. According to him, Ryan never failed at betting married women once he set his mind to it. That hit me like a punch in the gut. I was still settling into newlywed life and here I was, being told that my wife was some kind of conquest in the making. I went home and talked to Emily about it right away. She looked me in the eye and promised she'd never give Ryan a chance, never even be alone with him. Over time, that conversation faded into the background. Life went on. We heard Ryan had married a wealthy English woman and moved overseas. Just like that, he vanished from our world. Emily and I carried on with what I'd call a pretty standard marriage. We had our moments, good ones, tough ones, but overall we kept things steady. Then, out of nowhere, everything shifted. It was a regular Wednesday evening. We were sitting together in the living room watching the weather forecast. The meteorologist was smiling, saying the weekend would be sunny and warm. I remember glancing at the screen when suddenly, Emily turned toward me. Her face had gone serious. "Jake," she said quietly. "I need you to listen to me," Emily said, her voice low and tense. "There's something important I have to tell you." I looked over at her, confused by the sudden shift in mood. "All right, what is it?" She paused for a second. "It's not something that happened today. It's something from before you and I ever met." That didn't exactly ease the knot forming in my stomach. She hesitated, then asked, "Do you remember my ex-fiancé, Ryan Brooks?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean Blaze?" "Yeah, I remember him. The guy who got shot in the backside for messing around with another man's wife? I think the whole town still talks about that one." "What, did someone finally catch up with him again?" Emily had gone pale. "No, nothing like that. He lives in England now. But recently he came back to attend a friend's wedding. That's where he met Gabriella Erickson. You know her, right?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know Gabriella." Well, they hit it off. And when Ryan found out she knew me, he got curious. Started asking questions. Eventually, she gave him my number. The moment she said that, a cold chill ran through me. I didn't have to guess what this was about. I kept my voice steady. "Did he call you?" She nodded. "Yes. We've talked a few times. Just reminiscing." "Reminiscing?" I repeated, disbelief creeping in. "You were with the guy for, what, 3 or 4 months? He cheated on you, Emily. What exactly is there to reminisce about?" "You don't get it," she said, almost pleading. "Back then we had dreams. We talked about a future. I just wanted to talk about that time in my life." "That future's dead and buried," I snapped. "You're married now. To me. So what's really going on?" There was a long pause. Then she said it, almost whispering. "He wants to see me." "Of course he does. He told everyone he'd get you into bed one day and make sure the whole town knew." I said, the words sharper than I meant. "Kind of hard to pull that off over the phone." She flinched and her face went ghost white. "Don't be ridiculous," she said quickly. "He just wants to catch up, as friends. That's it." "All right then," I said, my voice hard. "Why don't we invite him over? You know, have him and his wife over for dinner. Nothing weird about that, right?" She shook her head, eyes avoiding mine. "He's not coming here." "Why not?" "Because he won a bonus week at a 5-star resort in Asia. He invited me to join him there." My jaw clenched. "Let me guess, his wife isn't coming?" "She's afraid of flying," Emily said quietly. "But she trusts him. She's okay with him meeting up with an old friend." I stared at her, stunned. "You've completely lost it? You honestly think this is normal?" "Please, Jake," she said, reaching for my hand. "Just hear me out. I already said yes." "I'm going," Emily said, trying to steady her voice. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You and I could never afford a place like that, especially not right now, not with everything we're spending on the summer house." I felt my hands ball into fists. This was worse than I had ever imagined. And deep down, I knew the worst part hadn't even happened yet. She was right about one thing. Ischia wasn't just any vacation spot. It was the crown jewel of Italian resorts, a haven for celebrities and the ultra-wealthy. But knowing that didn't change a thing. It didn't make this right. Anger surged through me. "Do you still have feelings for that guy?" I demanded, my voice rising. Her face twisted in pain. "No, Jake. No. I love you. You're the only man I've ever truly loved, and you know that." I let out a bitter laugh. "That's what you call love? Jetting off to some luxury island with the guy who once promised to humiliate you, and me? Spending a week in paradise alone with him? That's love to you? No. You've got it wrong," she said, stumbling over her words. "There's nothing like that going on. I haven't said anything about sex and he hasn't brought it up either. I haven't promised him a thing. I swear, I have no intention of betraying you. But I'd heard enough. I couldn't even hold back anymore." "No intention? Emily, do you really believe that man flew you out to Ischia for some wholesome chat about the good old days? He didn't spend thousands to reminisce. If you honestly think he's not planning something, then you're lying to yourself. Or to me. And when it happens, when photos, videos, who knows what starts spreading online, don't act surprised." She recoiled like I'd slapped her. "Do you really see me that way?" Her voice cracked. Just because Ryan won a bonus vacation and asked me to come, you think that makes me that kind of woman? I stared at her, heart thudding. Did his wife actually tell you she was okay with this? Or are you just taking Ryan's word for it? She didn't answer. Exactly, I said coldly. Then yeah, I do see you that way. Because that's how you're acting. And let me tell you something, once people start calling you that, it sticks. No amount of tears or explanations will clean that off. Tears filled her eyes as she broke down. You'll see. Nothing bad is going to happen. Just a vacation. Nobody's even going to know I'm with Ryan. I let out a humorless laugh. Nobody but me. And that's enough. You've completely lost your mind if you think this ends well. I'll keep it quiet, Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. No one will know. I shook my head, bitterness rising in my throat. Sooner or later, the whole town's going to see the proof of your little vacation, your luxury trip and my humiliation, splashed all over the internet. For the first time I saw real fear in her eyes. That fantasy of a guilt-free getaway was starting to crumble, and she realized the price tag was more than she'd bargained for. Please, don't do this to us, she said softly. I promise I'll make it up to you when I get back. I stared at her. My voice came out calm but unyielding. There's only one way to fix this. Take out your phone, call Ryan and tell him you're not going. Right now. Her lips quivered. I can't. And that was it. That one sentence was the end of it all. Somehow, in the pit of heartbreak, I felt a strange sense of clarity, almost relief as I said, then have a nice trip. I walked out to the living room, opened the cabinet, and poured myself a generous glass of the good whiskey I'd been saving. We didn't speak for the rest of the evening. Not one word. The next morning she walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened. Wearing a bright smile, she joked, "So, do you still think you're married to a 304? I looked up at her with nothing but cold in my voice. Did you cancel your trip? Her smile faded. No. I told you I can't. Then yes, I said flatly. I still do. Her face darkened, the smile vanishing completely. Well, your opinion doesn't mean much anymore, she snapped. We ate breakfast in silence. Later that day I made a call. Clara Jennings picked up, sounding surprised to hear from me. She lived just a few houses down, mother of Lily's best friend. Clara had divorced her cheating husband about 5 months ago. I'd always had a quiet respect for her. She wasn't flashy like Emily, but she had a strength and warmth I admired. Would you like to grab lunch with me today? I asked. Over lunch we made small talk. Eventually I leaned forward and said, I've got a little secret to share. But you have to promise to keep it just between us. Clara raised an eyebrow, half amused. A secret, huh? What's the catch? No catch, I said. Actually, there's a gift involved. That got her attention. I want to take Lily to Euro Disney in Paris, I said. And I'd love for you and your daughter to come with us. All expenses paid. She gave me a cautious look. And the condition? There isn't one, I said. Not before the trip, not during, not after. I just think it would be easier on me and more fun for Lily if you both joined us. She studied me for a moment, then asked the one question I knew would come. What does Emily think about this? I looked her in the eye. Emily won't care. She's too busy planning her own trip, to Asia. With her ex. I've made up my mind, I told Clara, my voice soaked in bitterness. I'm filing for divorce. She went quiet for a few moments. Then carefully she asked, Can you tell me more about this trip you mentioned? No solid plans yet, I said. If you say yes, we'll figure everything out together. An hour after lunch, Clara called me back. All right, she said softly. We're in. That evening she'd already lined up a babysitter, and we met at my office to start putting everything together. I thought she might want separate rooms to keep things proper. But instead, she suggested we book a family room so the girls could share the space and feel more at ease. I didn't object. From that day on, Clara and I talked daily. We booked our flights to Paris, rented a car, and reserved a hotel just minutes from Euro Disney. It felt good to have something to focus on, something positive for once. Back at home, things with Emily had turned cold. We barely exchanged words. The only real change was that I no longer had any desire to be physically close to her. If she noticed, she didn't seem to care. One afternoon, while I was at the gas station washing her car, I opened the glove box to find a folder she'd forgotten. Inside were printed pages from the luxury hotel in Asia, details about the resort, and an email from Ryan confirming their flight schedule and boat transfer. It felt deliberate, like she had left it there for me to find, as if daring me to react. But instead of provoking a fight, It gave me the last bit of clarity I needed. Her decision had already been made. And now so had mine. Maybe if I had given her an ultimatum, cancel the trip or we're done, she might have backed down. But I didn't see the point anymore. In my heart, she'd crossed the line the moment she agreed to that week away with Ryan. She wasn't clueless. She knew exactly what kind of invitation that was. And she said yes anyway. Yes, I was going to Paris with Clara. And yes, I told her there were no strings, no expectations. But this wasn't the same thing. Clara was single. And by the time we left, I had already signed the divorce papers. Whatever happened afterward, that would be about a possible future, not betrayal. When I told Emily that Lily and I would be going to Euro Disney while she was off in Asia, she barely blinked. She didn't ask who was coming with us. Didn't ask about any plans. Maybe she no longer cared. Or maybe she just assumed I wouldn't care enough to push back. And maybe she was right, at least about that. Until the night before her trip. She was packing her suitcase. I went to bed early, wanting nothing to do with the spectacle. Sometime later, I felt her trying to slide into bed beside me, her hand brushing my arm. I turned away and whispered coldly, "Don't touch me. Don't come near me. Not ever again." I shouted and Emily flinched. Her eyes filled with tears. "Please, just talk to me," she begged. "We'll talk when we're both back," I said coldly. "If there's anything left to talk about." She left early the next morning. As soon as I confirmed that their boat had departed for Asia, I picked up the phone and made a call to Ryan's wife. She was furious. "He's crossed the line this time," she snapped. Tracking her down hadn't been difficult. I remembered Elena's friend Nancy had once mentioned where Ryan and his wife lived in England. People with unique nicknames tend to stand out, and with a name like Blaze, the internet did the rest. A quick search pulled up the Grant family's landline. Then I sat down and wrote the letter. "Dear Emily, your old flame Ryan Brooks, also known as Blaze, is a terrible liar. His wife told me herself that she's been working as a hostess at their home while her husband went off to enjoy a week in Asia. She said she was happy to take care of things while he vacationed. Maybe if you'd spoken to her first, you wouldn't have fallen for every word that womanizer fed you. She's promised to fly to Asia as soon as she can and have a serious conversation with her charming husband, and you. Enclosed are copies of the divorce papers I filed today. From this moment on, you're free to do whatever you want without ever needing to consider me again. Of course, you didn't seem too concerned about that before. Otherwise, you wouldn't be reading this letter in Asia. Jake, your soon-to-be ex-husband." I faxed the letter along with the divorce papers directly to their hotel. It didn't take long for the phones to start ringing. My home line, my cell, non-stop. Once Elena checked in and saw the message, she started texting too. An hour after the first wave of messages, she sent another, "I'm coming home tomorrow. We need to clear up this misunderstanding." I replied, "You didn't share a hotel room with Ryan by accident. You flew out there on purpose. Now you get to live with the consequences. Maria and I won't be home, we're heading abroad for a few days. I don't care where you are." Later that night, I got a call from Abby Brooks, Ryan's wife. She was already in Naples and had stormed her way toward the hotel. She demanded Ryan throw Emily out of the room immediately. About 15 minutes later, she called back to say Ryan told her Emily had already left. So, she checked out less than an hour after arriving. Abby didn't believe they'd had the time, or the mindset, for any kind of romantic rendezvous after the chaos I dropped in their laps. The next morning, Clara, the girls, and I left for our trip. We flew Air France into Orly Airport and picked up our rental car. Navigating to our hotel was easy thanks to the built-in GPS. The girls were ecstatic, chatting and laughing non-stop, and Clara and I fell into an easy rhythm. The only hiccup came when we got to the room. Our family suite had 2 grand-lit beds. They're like slightly oversized single beds. Clara and I looked at each other, then burst out laughing. Problem solved itself. I barely thought about Emily after we arrived in France. She came back the very next day and as expected, her phone blew up with messages, text after text, pleading her innocence. She swore she hadn't cheated, that she'd spent the night alone at another hotel. She begged me to believe that nothing had happened. I responded simply, "You cheated the moment you said yes to his invitation. You didn't leave because you had some moral awakening. You left because his wife caught him and he threw you out." Clara never said a word about those exchanges. She kept her focus on the trip, on the girls, and on being present with me. We had 2 magical days at Euro Disney, and spent another exploring Paris. We climbed the Eiffel Tower, wandered through little shops, and took a quiet boat ride down the Seine. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was breathing again. That last night, after the girls had finally drifted off to sleep, Clara turned to me and whispered, "Jake, I love you." I looked into her eyes and replied, "I love you too, Clara." What followed was quiet and tender, a deeply intimate moment filled with emotion and care. We were careful not to wake the girls, but in that stillness, everything changed. It felt like a new chapter had truly begun. Afterwards, she asked me softly, "Will you still love me when we're back home?" I took her hand. Love isn't about where we are. It's real no matter the place. The next morning as we packed, Clara turned to me with an offer I didn't expect. "You and Lily, you could move in with Will and me." I paused. "Are you serious?" She nodded without hesitation. "If you meant what you said, that you love me, then my home is your home too." I said yes. We both knew it was sudden. We'd only spent 4 days together and of course, we'd mostly seen each other at our best. But we also understood something deeper, that sometimes, taking a chance is the only way to win at life. Emily didn't take the news well. When she realized I was moving out, she broke down completely. She cried, screamed, begged me to stay. But it was too late. She made her choice when she put a lavish trip with an ex ahead of our marriage. That bridge had already burned. My first night in Clara's home was unforgettable. We stayed up talking, laughing, and later loving. Not out of spite. Not to replace something lost. But because we were building something new, something honest. I often found myself wondering how Clara's ex-husband could have ever been foolish enough to cheat on a woman like her. No one is perfect, of course, but Clara had a quiet strength, a warmth that didn't fade with time. I truly believed that whatever challenges came our way, we'd face them together. That belief was tested sooner than I expected. It started with a low-quality printout, an envelope left in our mailbox with no return address. The image showed Clara at what appeared to be a Christmas party, standing close to Ryan Brooks. But something about the photo felt off. Her watch wasn't the one she'd worn since we met, and her hair looked shorter than it had been in real life. That evening, I handed her the letter and the picture. "Any idea what this is about?" I asked, watching her face carefully. Clara looked at the photo, her expression tightening. "I've always suspected Ryan of doing something," she said after a moment. "There was a wild midsummer party back in high school. I was drinking heavily and the next morning I couldn't remember everything. I was afraid, either something happened or he made it happen." She paused. "But I never had proof. Just memories that didn't feel right. I've tried to put it behind me. Clara and I had made an agreement long ago. What happened before we met didn't matter. We both had pasts and we accepted that. But this wasn't really about her past. This was about someone intentionally trying to drive a wedge between us. The image had clearly been doctored, painstakingly manipulated. The lighting, angles, even facial expressions were subtly wrong. Whoever had done it was skilled with Photoshop, and clearly had a personal motive. Someone out there hated Clara or hated me or maybe both. We never found out who sent it. Clara showed the image to a few of her co-workers, some of whom had known her since school. No one recalled the moment from the photo. None believed it was real. Through it all we stayed close. Even during the weeks when Emily tried to reinsert herself into the picture, Clara remained steady. She understood. Our daughters had grown so close, like sisters, and that bond made everything easier. In the end, the photo faded into the background. Just another reminder that not every ghost from the past can hurt you, unless you let it. Abby and I stayed in touch now and then through emails. It wasn't often, but it was enough to stay updated on how things were unfolding on her end. That's how I eventually found out that she and Ryan, Blaze, had split up about 2 months after their trip to Asia. Apparently, Ryan had made one last mistake that even Abby couldn't overlook. After a weekend visit to her parents' house, he'd accidentally left his phone behind. Her father, curious and likely suspicious, decided to take a look. What he found were dozens of explicit messages between Ryan and another woman. That was the final straw. Abby had already tolerated more than she should have, and that discovery ended things for good. As for Emily, she's dated a few men since everything ended between us. The first relationship fizzled quickly, just a month or so. The guy seemed awkward and not much of a match for her. But her current boyfriend? He's different. Even Lily has picked up on it and says she likes the guy. That means something. Still, there's a complication. He recently went through a rough divorce himself, and his ex-wife left him with next to nothing. Financially, he's starting over. But maybe that's what makes them work. They've both been through the fire. Meanwhile, Clara and I are moving forward with our plans. We're getting married. Every piece is falling into place. Between us, with the girls, with the life we're building. It hasn't been easy. None of this has. But sometimes the most painful endings are what finally clear the way for a real beginning.